I just want to maintain the record for us. So, I have something that makes my life worth living. 20 sounds like a bolder number. In any case. So, the only one that might break this record by not having a job for 20 years would probably be Richard Branson. Zakk Wylde, the person who carries the torch for heavy metal. Not every guitarist becomes a legend with just a guitar and a lot of willpower. But Zakk Wylde has long hair and a thick beard, a bullseye guitar that he always plays, and a playing style as wild as a whirlwind, is a figure that is impossible to miss in the metal world. But underneath that fiery looks are not out of control a rebel, but a guy of great faith. A family man who was dedicated and stopped drinking for his child, and who still bows his head in prayer every night. He used to be Ozzy's right-hand man. Osbourne is the most dedicated guitarist to the Dark Prince. He started it, and head of the Black Label Society, Metal Empire he made out of the ashes. He's also the one who wrote in this Rivera's a goodbye to his best pal Dimebag Darrell, only had to stand on stage years later with Dimebag's guitar in hand. They kept on. They dream that Pantera hasn't finished yet. Zakk has never needed scandal to stay alive. He has never tried to get famous either, via noise. He lives the way he plays with all my heart and without a doubt with conviction and a weight that can never be made up. So what makes Zakk Wylde not able to be replaced? His journey is not simply about music, it's a tale of loyalty, loss, faith, and the will to live everything. Life in the early days. Zakk Wylde came into the world near Bayonne, New Jersey, on January 14, 1967. Jersey is a tiny port town on the east edge of the United States. His family hailed from a working-class family with no connections to the arts, no stage in reach. But Zakk has always been found the one thing that made him music, made him feel completely alive. When his family migrated there when they were still kids, Jackson is a calm, semi-rural region. There wasn't much to do there. No no creative outlets or friend groupings. Zakk is a meek and quiet boy, slowly got into the habit of going inside, living in peace, not related to other people. He wasn't the popular or special pupil at school. He didn't really stand out. And no one needed them because he had a guitar. Zakk started playing with simple things when he was 8 chords. But he didn't start till he was 14, that his love grew. From that his days turned into a loop from that point on. Practice, eat, and then practice again. Sleep for a couple hours and then play until morning. I don't play, he said once. I play guitar because I want to be famous. I play because if I don't, I feel like I'm dying inside. There were no teachers. Zakk taught without the internet or expensive technology. By rewinding cassette tapes, copying every note and riff from Histony Iommi, Eddie Van Halen, and other greats. Randy Rhodes's The Great Guitarist is one of them, Ozzy Osbourne's guitarist. In 1982, when Randy Rhodes died in a sad, Zakk, who was 15, cried as the plane crashed, if he had lost a family member. Randy wasn't merely a famous musician to him. He was a live model, an artist who played from the heart, never gave in, and left the world at the top of his game. That loss left a significant mark on Zakkis in their minds, turning into a promise. He would, no matter who he was, he would walk his own way, believed in him or not. No one in Jackson could have been able to foresee that the thin boy playing until his fingers would one day take Rise place when he bled in the Ozzy Osbourne stage. But it was that silent, steady, and Alana childhood that made a special kind of strength. The kind that doesn't need a passion to exist, not a spotlight to burn. First job. In the middle of the 1980s, although glam metal bands were the most popular stage with hair that went up to the sky and shinny spandex, a young man from Jackson, New Jersey, was quietly working on his craft in a basement. Zakk Wylde wasn't a famous person, not yet. He didn't have his name on it, guitar with a bullseye. No one called him a leader or a soldier. He was only a guitarist. No one knows who plays in small bands like Stonehenge and Cyrus, working part-time in a booze store and dreaming of a breakthrough that can't happen. Then fate knocked on the door. In 1987, Ozzy Osbourne, who had broken up with Jake E. Lee, the guitarist, was looking for new talent. In the middle of the flood of de Moon rock cassette that came in the mail came from New Jersey and ended up in Ozzy's boss. There were rough twists on it, choosing that had a classical touch and rebellion in the present. That was Zakk, 20 years old at the time. They never left the never played in front of a lot of people. Never thought he would be taking over for Randy Rhoads. Right after that, Ozzy had an audition at his house. In a lot of interviews, Zakk remembered going into that room with hands that were shaking. But when Ozzy Sawant responded, "Okay, show me you have. Got it," everything else disappeared. There was simply sound and a heart that beats hard. As he didn't take long to make a choice, Zakk was formally named within days the band's main guitarist, marking the start of a musical cooperation that would last for more than 30 years. The first album that Zakk was on was No 1988, Rest for the Wicked. Even though it didn't blow up like Blizzard of Oz, or it made one thing clear in Diary of a Madman clear: Zakk Wylde was here with a fierce, a rough, controlled approach that was different Jake Lee, and not a replica of Randy not Rhodes's either. Zakk wasn't trying to be known. He came to compose his own part. He rapidly showed his skills on stage: metal, the head and the wide-legged stance tilt during solos. The aggressive made him practically enraged while he played. Impossible to miss. He wasn't the best-looking musician. You've hit you in the heart with riffs that cut through the air with songs like Miracle Man, Crazy Babies, and subsequently No More Crying. 1991, Zakk was no longer just a backup. Heifer made an important element of Ozzy's life new time. But not all of the first steps were fame and attention. Zakk had to deal with a lot of stress, comparing all the time to these late Randy Rhodes's. Criticism for being too raw. He even said he didn't fit Ozzy's dark picture, but instead Zakk stayed silent and practiced instead of retreating, worked harder, wrote more, and allowed his actions speak louder than words. Zakk Wylde was there for all of those early years, never pursued headlines, never did haughty, and never asked the media for attention. He just picked up his guitar, went on stage, and let the music do the talking, and it was that quiet determination that drove his name in the history of metal. Noah's Zakk Wylde, not Rye's replacement, the man who made his own way with blood, melody, and a will that can't be taught. Success in your career. Not like a lot of guitarists who live off of the celebrity of their major. Zakk Wylde never let himself get too close to become little more than a shadow of Ozzy Osbourne, after leaving a strong effect on Rest for the Wicked and other albums like it. 1988, No More Tears, 1991, and Osmosis, 1995. Zakk started to realize that if he didn't carve, he would always be known for his own routines, the guy who plays guitar for someone else. As new trends like new came out in 1998, Zakk, metal and alternative were getting more popular. The Black Label Society, or BLS, not simply a band, but a movement, lifestyle, a place for those who never give in. As the lead singer, Zakk is a guitarist, singer, and producer, made BLS the place to go for everything that helped his character say pain, anger, faith, loyalty, and the desire to survive honestly. The first album, Sonic Brew, 1999, was rough around the edges yet clear as day different. Songs like Born to Lose and Bored to Tears and spoken the wheelware sound that is crushing but full of depth. But it wasn't until Mafia 2005 that BLS really blew out, especially with Ballad in This River that Zakk wrote to pay tribute to his friend Dimebag 2004. Darrell was killed on stage. The song soon became a popular tune in the metal community, not just for its music, but for the brotherhood that it will always have embodied. Zakk kept up with BLS and a solid bond with Ozzy, even though Ozzy had worked with other people at Time Shock. Constantly came back to the guitarists at the proper time and in the correct way, like a limb that could never be cut. He played in Black Rain 2007 and The Number of Patience 9, 2022, still shaping the signature squeezy harmonic sound that made Ozzy's 21 Street catalog of the century. But Zakk didn't stick to metal. He showed a softer side of himself, with 2 solo albums, Book of Shadows, 1996, and Book of Shadows 2, 2016, sad country songs that are full with sadness and auditory textures. Like the fiercest warrior finally had the guts to say he could feel hurt. He also started Zakk in 2014. Sabbath is a tribute band that plays Black Sabbath, playing their tunes with raw energy, not showy, but homage. This project showed that he wasn't just an old fan holding on to memories, but a humble heir paying deep respect to the legacy. What makes Zakk Wylde's career unique isn't it simply how he does it. It's his bravado get away from a huge shadow. to create his own world and stay there, stays true to himself even when the cheers fades. In a field that changes all the time, Zakk never follows trends, no matter the season. He don't write songs to fit in. He makes to stay alive. And by doing this, he becoming one of the most quietly strong pillars of modern heavy metal, challenging times and progress. If the stage was where Zakk Wylde let go his anger and emotion, and then life behind the scenes was there, he learned to face real crises that don't get any attention or applause. Only a tired body, losses that were unspoken, and bitter wake-ups. In 2009, Zakk unexpectedly stopped in the middle of a tour, had terrible leg discomfort that lasted for a long time, tiredness and trouble breathing. He originally thought it was just the toll off lots of shows and a lot of drinking. But the doctor told him something that no one else expected: blood clots, which can cause strokes, pulmonary embolism, or death all of a sudden. If it hadn't been caught in, Zakk could have passed out right then and there, on stage. He was taken to the hospital and told to make on a choice that can't be made. Stop drinking, stop entirely, or perish. For someone who had once cared for Jack Daniels like a friend for life, fuel for both his rough lifestyle and his music, this was like cutting off a limb from my living aspect of who he is. But Zakk chose to live for his wife, his child, and anything he hadn't said yet through his guitar. I didn't stop drinking because I wanted to be better than everyone else. I quit because I wanted to see my child grow up. Since that pivotal point, Zakk began a fresh chapter. No more nights of drinking behind the scenes. No more parties that last all night. He started working out frequently and praying every morning, sticking to a strict diet and staying away from anything that could pull him back to the edge. Zakk became a man after being a wild youngster for a long time, under full control, still on fire, but no longer letting the fire take over. Boutique blood clots were a real danger. Dimebag Darrell's death. Zakk said, hurt deeply to lose my best friend. Dimebag was shot in December 2004 and shot and died while on stage. Zakk heard the news on the way to a show and fell down in shock. For a long time, Zakk hardly ever talked about Dimebag in public. He wrote a song called In This River instead, not as a sad song, but as a way to keep a memory. The song became a common sight at memorials and still one of most emotional things Zakk has ever written. No complicated solos, no heavy, there are no riffs. Just soft piano and guitar, and sadness that didn't need to be explained. Dimebag's death came after Vinnie Paul's brother and the last living member of Pantera in 2018. Zakk didn't say much at all about concept of a Pantera reunion. Once remarked, I will never replace Dime, I can only play to honor him, and that's exactly what occurred. It wasn't until after both brothers were gone in 2002 that Zakk accepted to be Pantera's guitarist for the tribute tour. It wasn't a successful return. It was a long overdue goodbye given through music on the same stage they used to call home. Zakk also lost more than just people, had a less serious setback. Ozzy Osbourne stopped working together for a while during the 2000s to play with other guitarists like Ozzy. But Zakk never got angry or upset, made the news with complaints. Remarked, if Ozzy calls, I'll always be there, be there. Not a contract, not a condition. Zakk Wylde didn't get weaker from hardship. It made him stronger, quieter, and more profound. He doesn't have to yell anymore to be heard. Because in the end, what keeps not just metal keeps him standing. It's loyalty to his family and friends, and to the most honest version of himself, life at home. If you only saw Zakk Wylde on stage with his shaggy beard and leather-studded clothing, arms around a guitar with tattoos on it, you would think he has a crazy life, parties that never end, hard liquor, women, and never-ending chaos. But in reality, Zakk is a strong contradiction. A very thoughtful man who is dedicated to marriage, someone who is grounded in religion and thinks about family as the most important thing in his life, never go on tour without. Zakk is married to Barbara Wylde, the woman who stayed by him even though no one knew his name, and who later became his money manager, image consultant. And the person who spared him from death in a very real way, drinking too much and hurting yourself. Zakk never talks about in any of his interviews success without bringing her up. He calls her queen in a funny but serious way. Baron says a lot that without would have perished, or worse, without her being alive but not really living. They have 4 kids together. And Zakk once cut a tour short solely to make in time for his daughter's piano recital. He stated, I used to think nothing was music was the most important thing to me, but later I noticed the sight in my child's eyes when he know that occasionally while I was practicing the only way to avoid this is to step back, lose everything, living in a world of rocks full with Zakk has never given into temptation. In a public affair, there are no reports of cheating and no divorce stories for tabloids to eat up. His wedding is quiet but strong as stone. A rare example in the metal industry where every record feels like a different breakup. Outside of the spotlight, Zakk is a devout Catholic. Every morning, he prays and wears a cross around his neck all the time and never makes fun of his religion. Even if it doesn't show on stage, tell people outside that things are different. In a field based on lies, and Zakk decides to cling on to a belief system that is quiet but strong. Spiritual anchor that has helped him get through loss, illness, and the long lengths of time that no one remembers. Another thing that not many people know about Zakk is very devoted as a buddy. His bond with Dimebag Darrell, it wasn't just a picture of friendship, but something made in blood, alcohol, music, and silence understanding. They didn't call each other all the time, but they always knew where the other one stood. Zakk cried like he had lost Dime when he died, had lost something important to him. He never using Dime's name to make his own name better, never said they were a good replacement for anybody. Every time he plays in this, though, River, it's a quiet homage. No talking needed. Zakk Wylde is not the kind of person who puts his private life out in the open to beloved. He decides to keep his keep precious things to themselves. His wife, his kids, his beliefs, and his friends, and maybe that's why after decades in the storm of rock and roll, he is still one of the extremely few who haven't ever lost track of themselves. Legacy and effect. Zakk Wylde isn't the first name that comes to mind when people think of the best guitar players of all time. He has never had a solo song at the top of the Billboard charts, never won a Grammy for being a solo artist, and he has never gone after the image of a flashy virtuoso, but that's what makes his legacy so very well respected. A career that never stops, a strict way of living, and a presence in the heart that can't be replaced off the metal community around the world. In a technical sense, Zakk helped change the sound of heavy metal music nowadays. His crisp, characteristic pinch harmonic style, screaming and clearly raw, shaped the sound of both Ozzy Osbourne's and the Black Label Society's catalogs. It became his calling card and gave him ideas. Hundreds of young guitar players all around the world. A lot of people think you only need one note to know it's Zakk Wylde. His bullseye guitar with its black and white rings are fascinating, not just a tool for performance. It's a sign. It has been on stage with Ozzy, was in the Dimebag Monument videos, played with Pantera, and made the covers of Zakk Sabbath records. That picture means loyalty and an identity that can't be changed. Even though he's not, Zakk is a mainstream superstar, a spiritual symbol in the metal world. He made up a kind of unapproved music, a group of brothers dubbed the Black Label Society, where people come not simply for the music but for the brotherhood code. Zakk shows be authentic, play hard, and never leave anyone behind. Zakk is more than just a musician at BLS. He's a big brother and a leader to souls that have been forgotten. Zakk's impact was also comes from how he made a living without giving into the market. He didn't run after trends. When new encountered metal, he was in charge, kept the strong riffs going. When solos where he kept shredding like he was out of date. They were the last holy thing left, and strangely, that refusal toss-off was a symbol of conformity, perseverance, which is what the music that the industry really needs right now. To other musicians, Zakk is a symbol of strength and faithfulness. Ozzy Osbourne calls him the friend who is always there for you. David James Hetfield, Dimebag, and Mustang Darrell, Zakk, and everyone else said they respected him, not only for his skill, but also for how he never gave up who he was to be, accepted. And not many are like Zakk, who can adjacent to Ozzy alone before tens off people and then sit quietly by a flames, playing a sad acoustic guitar sounds like throwing it all away. Note it needs applause to prove its worth. The legacy of Zakk Wylde isn't kept in trophies. It lives in the hearts of people who have heard him play. People who know that music doesn't have to be strong without being loud. Doesn't need to follow trends to stay alive. It just requires honesty, fire, and the bravery to never betray you. And that's sacred in metal life now. As he goes into 2023, Zakk Wylde is now in the 2025 chapter of his life. isn't only keeping a presence as he nears 60, being there. He's going through one of the most lively and important times of his career since his best years with Osbourne from Australia. Many of his having moved away from their pierced spotlight or merely via Zakk still rises tall with nostalgia, his distinctive guitar, tattered boots, and on a spirit that never wavers, going on a trip that has never really stopped. Since 2002, Zakk is now a member of the Pantera tribute tour is an effort to bring back global events, remembering the memories of Dimebag Darrell and Paul Vinny. At first, he wasn't sure. He never sought to take over in Yoni. But after both of the Abbott brothers shock understood once it was over. If no one cared enough to bring the past back to live with honor and love, those memories won't really die. So he went on stage, not as a new hero, but as the guardian of a dream that wasn't finished. In 2005, Pantera keeps going on their summer hike under the heaviest tour of the Banner Summer that includes dozens of big North American cities with bands like Anna Marth. Shows that blow up in Charlotte, Houston, Philadelphia, and Los Angeles has turned into a living memorial where Zakk plays with Dimebag Darrell guitar. Every note sounds like friendship, loss, and the eternal nature of true music. Zakk is juggling more than just Pantera. A lot of side projects with the same strength. He's with Zakk Sabbath, started the King of the Monster store in the winter of 2024 to 2005 and putting out Greatest Riffs at the same time, a collection of famous Black Sabbath covers. He's getting ready with Black Label Society. A new record coming out in late 2005, getting ready for a world tour this next year. Zakk also did this in early 2005, took part in the Experience Rick Store, an homage to Jimi Hendrix, playing with some of the best musicians in the world finest guitarists, once again confirming his role as a strong heir to the spirit of traditional rock guitar. Most especially on July 5, 2005, Zakk joins the historic Back to the Beginning concert, celebrating a Black Sabbath reunion in Birmingham. Thought's presence, even though he wasn't an official member, with Ozzy Osbourne, Tony Iommi, and Geezer Butler sent a message that didn't get through. Needed to be spoken. Zakk is the living link between a famous generation and a future that isn't done yet. Zakk you can't perform music to prove anything anymore. He's lived through disease, through sadness, through years of by not seen. But he never forgot who he was. In a world that's getting quicker, louder, and easier to forget, Zakk Wylde is a sluggish beat that is needed. And remember that metal isn't only noise, but honesty, loyalty, and yes, give up. Zakk Wylde never says he's a legend. He doesn't require titles, but every time the sound of his target guitar shows out, whether on a hot stage or in Iono, Zakk is still a quiet ballad. They're a pillar of a time that won't end or fade, not because he used to flame cleaver, but because he never gave up the light. Zakk Wylde will always be an icon of strength and faithfulness, strength and never giving up spirit. A man who lived honestly, played with everything he had, and enjoyed it like a prayer. His legacy will live on in the hearts of those who really love rock. What are your thoughts about Zakk Wylde's amazing trip? Have you ever felt something because of one of his songs? Or do you remember seeing him in a special way? A live show? Tell us what you think and please leave a remark below. And don't forget to hit please like and subscribe so we can maintain learning about the lives of living music tales that go together. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video. Take care until then.